and excited to have three wonderful speakers joining us this evening. That is Katie McDermott, Beth Felson, and Kurt Manneke, all experts in the field of autism and working with transition coaching and social skill development. And tonight are going to be speaking a little bit more specifically about volunteerism and the benefits of that and the opportunities that can create for autistic young adults. So I am going to turn it over to them and let them introduce themselves and take care of the rest. If you have questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat. You can either do it to everyone or to me privately, and we'll make sure we get to those at the end. So thanks, everyone.
Oh, this is me. So welcome, I'm Beth Felson, and on behalf of Katie and Kurt and myself, we wanted to welcome you to tonight's presentation. We always like to give a little bit of an overview of what to expect. And so first, we're going to introduce ourselves to you. We'll talk about some of the benefits of volunteering and where volunteering can especially be a benefit for autistic young adults. We'll talk about how to consider your skills and your interests when you're looking for appropriate volunteer opportunities. Kurt's going to talk about what to expect when you're a volunteer and the types of skills that you should be aware of before you actually embark on your volunteer activities. We will present you with some resources that you can access, and then we'll have some time for questions. So I am going to introduce myself first. My business is called Spectrum Transition Coaching. I am a coach who works exclusively with autistic young adults, sort of when they're anticipating what life after high school is going to look like for them. We do some college readiness work. We do some vocational and career development work. I help young adults to develop their interview skills and help them with their job search, and also do some general life coaching around the adulting skill set. I have a lot of different kinds of training. I've sort of collected trainings along the way to help my clients. And my training includes some Asper coach training from the Asperger's Autism Network, which is a great organization up in Massachusetts. If you're not familiar with it, they have developed their own coaching training program. And so I trained in that program. I'm trained in the UCLA Peers Social Skills Development Curriculum. I have executive function coach training. I've pretty much done everything. I'm based in Virginia, Northern Virginia, although I'm coming to you from the East Coast of Florida right now. But I work with my clients through Zoom, so I can work with young adults and with their families, regardless of where they are located, including out on the West Coast. That's a little bit about me.
I'll go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie McDermott. I am coming to you from Westchester County, New York. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to sit and listen in. And if you're making dinner and you have us on, we're so glad that you're here. Or if you're watching this after the fact, we all appreciate and know how busy everybody's lives are. I am a special education teacher by training. I have been working with autistic students my entire career. And now I started as in elementary, and then as the students got older, I just continued to move up. And now I'm really enjoying the transition to college and college success this age. I work with the students under the framework of self-determination. I am a proponent of no matter what the student is working on in college, getting ready for college, getting ready to leave college, I always try to bring it back to those components of self-determination and fostering those sense of independence. I also work with my clients over Zoom, and I participate as a practitioner in the College Autism Network.
I'll go next. Hi, everybody. My name is Kurt Mianeke, and thank you, Kevin, for having us, and Katie for arranging this. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm the author of the book on social and job skills, Smile and Succeed for Teens, Must-Know People Skills for Today's Wired World. I really wrote it to give kids confidence because I remember, I was just telling Katie and Beth and Kevin, when I was in middle school, I just didn't know what to say to an adult. I had a lawn service and I would go up and knock on adults' doors and I'd be sweating. I was just so nervous. I had no idea what to say. And then when I got a job in retail in high school, they didn't train me. They kind of just threw me on the sales floor. And I was actually hoping nobody would come in because I didn't have any answers and I didn't know what to say. And those days were like the longest days of my life. So I really wrote it. Every sentence I wrote, I thought, boy, this will give that teen confidence. And it's available in an ebook and an online course, an audio book, and of course a book. And I've got a parent's guide and a teaching guide. But it's really short and quick and easy to read. I wrote it to make sure that young adults would actually read it. And then when they go on the job or when they're meeting friends or adults, they'll know what to say with the right social skills. They'll be prepared when that customer walks in. They'll know how to greet them with a smile and a friendly hello and things like that. So I'm happy to be here and share some volunteer experience with everybody. Thank you.
Beth, I think you're muted.
Yes. Sorry about that. I'm going to discuss some of the benefits of volunteering just to sort of set the stage. What I find when I work with autistic young adults is that they're really looking to build skills in a lot of different areas. So one thing that volunteering can really help do is help flesh out your resume a little bit. Whether you're applying to college or you are looking to go into the work world, it really can help you show people that you are not only interested in advancing yourself, but that you're also interested in giving back to your community. So it's a great resume builder. It's a great way to get to know your community a little bit better, and can also lead to some accolades within the community for doing well in your volunteer positions. You can usually find something pretty close to home. A lot of the students that I work with do not have a driver's license. And so finding something that you can get to by bike or walk to or do on the weekends near home when someone can drive you can be really, really helpful. It helps you to meet more people who live within your community, including peers. So if you're volunteering with other people your own age, it can be a really great source for finding and developing friendships and working on some skills in that area. It can also help you with career options. You know, if you think you're interested in working with animals and you volunteer in an animal shelter and you find that it's too chaotic or too loud or you know, whatever, it can help you to make that determination before you've actually gone down a career path with that you find that you're really not enjoying. It can help you learn about fields that you didn't know existed. You know, there are lots of really interesting volunteer opportunities that can help you learn about fields within the nonprofit sector, different ways of getting involved in helping other people, social work, for example, or things like that. It's a great way to sort of test the waters on different career opportunities. It's also a great way to learn how to interact with supervisors and people in a position of authority. You talk to those people differently than you would talk to a peer. And for some young adults, they've not really had a lot of opportunity to flex those muscles. And so volunteering can really be a great help that way as well. So just a couple of benefits of volunteering.
And it can be very overwhelming when you're starting on the journey to find a volunteering position, to figure out where to start, or who are the people that you can ask for help? And I'm speaking like as the student, like who am I going to ask for help for this? And a great way to start is to think about the young adult and what is motivating to that person. What do they already like to do? What are their hobbies? What are their skills? And to begin there, think about that as like the launching off point. Because if they're already involved in an activity, there could be opportunity that they just don't know about within that activity. So if they participate in a chess club at school, to talk to the chess club advisor and say, hey, is there anything going on with the Big Brothers Big Sisters Foundation? Are they looking for any type of like peer coaching? Or is there an opportunity to go and help like set up the tables and chairs for the next chess tournament? I don't know. I've never played chess, so I'm not sure if that's what they do, but just an opportunity within the club itself. Another resource in the community, like Beth was saying, to start small would be to check in with your house of worship. There are many, they're always looking for volunteers to help run their fundraisers or their fairs. They might know of somebody who's in need in the town who might need a driver, if you're of driving age, to go to certain appointments. They're just another resource. And the librarians at the library, they have, first of all, they have lots of resources and pamphlets and opportunities that they know of that they could share with all of the people who are interested. And it's just something to be considerate of, is in terms of your skills and your interests, that sensory component. Are you going to be looking for a volunteer opportunity that is indoors versus outdoors? Are you in the Northeast where it's negative, the wind chill, and you're very sensitive to the temperature? Then perhaps you might be looking for more opportunities in the winter that are indoors. And we have some resources that we'll share a little bit later on, but where to look for some of these opportunities. And now Kurt's going to be talking about when you are starting to volunteer, what should you expect?
Thank you, Katie. Some of the things to expect when you volunteer, one thing I'd like to get across to the teens is when you're volunteering, people don't know if you're a staff member or a volunteer, but you're representing that nonprofit. So everything you do is a representation of them. So that means you want to be professional, you want to be on time, if not early, phones away at all times. And before you go to volunteer, I'd highly recommend practicing some of these social skills, such as introducing yourself to somebody, because when you volunteer, they will have you meet the contact person. It might be the volunteer coordinator, or it might be a staff person, and they'll say, go see Beth. She's the person in charge for this event. So when you get there, you'll want to be dressed professionally. And if you're not sure how to dress, you can always contact them to find out. But you'll also want to practice introducing yourself, smiling and saying, hi, Beth, I'm Kurt. I'm here to volunteer at 3 o'clock. How are you? It's so nice to meet you. And just making that great first impression. I volunteer quite a bit. I'm a member of our local Rotary Club. And by the way, Rotary has an Interact Club in the schools, and that's a great way to volunteer. And your local Rotary clubs are always looking for volunteers too, family events. So that each city usually has one. But what you want to really make sure you do is practice some of the social skills, and also be ready, try and ask them ahead of time, what is the volunteer task that I'm going to be doing? For instance, what I'll see a lot when I volunteer is the young adults will be on their phones. For example, I was parking cars in an autism center last fall, and this was for their gala. This was a major event for major donors, and people are coming here sometimes for the first time. So I was trying to get the teens to get off their phones and make eye contact and smile and greet these people, say, hi, how are you? Thank you so much for coming. Because that's that first impression that person is getting from that nonprofit organization. And I would have the young adults practice those types of skills, because I kept telling the teens, these people, this is their first time. They could become a major donor if they have a great experience at this gala. And also I would advise them to be ready if you're volunteering to answer questions. So, arrive to the event early, ask that volunteer staff person, what else do I need to know? For example, when we were parking cars, it was a ways away from the event. So a lot of people were asking, where do I go? And I'd tell the young adults, tell them to cross the driveway, go up the hill, and go to the main porch of the big house right there, the big old mansion, and that's where they'll sign in. So they want to be ready to do that. Customer service wise, if they're helping a prospect and the visitor says to them at the nonprofit event, thank you so much, you don't want your young adult to say, no problem, yep. You want them to smile and say, you're welcome, thank you so much for coming. Always practicing these customer service skills. If they're volunteering at maybe a PetSmart, I used to do that quite a bit, and somebody's looking for a dog or a cat, you'll want your young adult to be prepared to guide that person, to walk with them towards that animal. It's all really customer service skills. And the last thing I'll say here is you really want them to be able to say, if somebody asks them a question and they don't know, they never want to say, I don't know. Make sure the young adults say, you know what, I'm not sure, but let me go find out for you. If you could just wait a minute, thank you very much, I'll go find out, and then come back with that answer for them. So just being prepared with some of these social skills, body language, standing up straight, not being slouched, arms at their side, not crossed, just be very welcoming to people. Again, I can't stress enough having that smile as that first contact, because a lot of times a visitor to a nonprofit, they don't even know where they are. This is their first time to an event. So you want to make them feel really welcome, and that smile makes such a difference. Just saying, hi, how are you? Thank you so much for coming. My name's Kurt. How are you? And they'll say, oh, I'm Betsy, and this is Fred. And it's just making that first impression so they're comfortable. They'll never forget that experience. And this is my book, Smile and Succeed for Teens. Like I said, I do have a parent's guide, which really makes it easy to role play with your young adults, the skills in this book. It's really short. I purposely wrote it with no wasted words. I rewrote it 70 times until teens would actually read it. I spent 9 months meeting with teens. I had a great group of teens that helped me with it. But you can role play with your young adults the techniques that I was just talking about, including if they're going to have their own business, beyond volunteering. Like Beth was saying, volunteering transitions right into having their own business, but there are so many benefits when you're volunteering, including knowing how to answer the phone properly. One thing I'll tell you is your young adult might be the only person in that kitchen when the phone rings. The staff might have run outside for something, and knowing how to answer that phone professionally is something else I'd recommend before they go volunteer. And I can't tell you how many times that happens at an event. Just really being prepared with these important social skills is so important. And the other thing it does, it gives teens confidence, because who wants to go somewhere when you're really not trained? That's not fun. We've all been there. It's kind of trial by fire. So preparing them for success, they'll have fun, they'll meet people, they'll have the skills, so they'll be successful volunteering, and then they'll want to volunteer. They'll want to volunteer more. So I would highly recommend role-playing the skills in my book, and also doing the modeling, and volunteer as a family. With our Rotary Club, we're always looking for families, and we get a lot of families, and they'll say to me, boy, my kids haven't had this much fun in years. So, whether it's weeding or painting or helping us raise money, there's always things you can do as a family, and that automatically gets your young adults involved, and they get to see how you're kind of modeling the behavior that they should be doing. And I think that's a huge plus for teens, kind of an easy way for them to get into volunteering. But your local PetSmart, every weekend, they need volunteers at these events to help those dogs and cats get adopted. And I'll tell you, most of the time, there's just the founder of the organization there and somebody else, and they're busy with the animals. They barely have time to wait on all the people who want help and guidance on adopting an animal. And that's a perfect time for your young adults to practice these social skills, greeting customers with a smile, asking them, hi, what kind of dog are you looking for? How can I help you? And then practicing those listening skills and walking them over to a dog. Or maybe your team just wants to take the dogs in and out, and that gives them some socialization too. So there's a lot that they can do with that. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm coughing. This is really, really important. Like I mentioned before, volunteering really transitions right into employment skills. I used to have a specialty retail store and I had 25 teenagers working for me. And we had a 6-week training program before they were allowed to interact with customers. But the volunteering is kind of like that 6-week training program, because they will become proficient with their social skills, and that transfers into helping customers in whatever type of job they're doing. Maybe they're at a dentist office, maybe they're starting out answering the phones. Well, that when somebody walks in, you want them to be able to say, hi, how are you? Welcome. Thank you so much for coming in, and answering that phone properly, and being able to go back and forth between a phone call and a customer, and not ignoring the customer when you're on the phone and somebody walks in. So the volunteering skills, as far as the social skills, engaging people, smiling, saying hi, having that proper body language, staying off those phones. I can't stress that enough. That's a huge issue with employment now. My friend has a Little Caesars up in Chatham, Ontario. He gives them one warning, then he fires them, because he can't afford to lose his business over a young adult who is on their phones. So make sure that the teens know, keep those phones off and in their pocket, or hopefully locked in their car, or preferably at home when they're at work. But a lot of the skills that they'll learn volunteering, just really the body language, if they're comfortable with some eye contact. I know that's challenging with autistic students, young adults. They can always look at the person's nose or look at their chin, if that helps too. But I think that's huge to put on your resume, like Beth says, and to tell an employer when they're interviewing you, what type of work experience do you have? They can say, well, I actually have volunteered quite a bit, and here's what I've done. I took care of the animals at this animal center. I greeted the customers when they came in. I was their first point of contact. I was in charge of customer service. That translates right into what an employer is looking for, because I can tell you, as an employer of teens, I wasn't looking for the skilled teen. I was looking all the time. I was thinking in my head, would this person be somebody that I could trust to wait on Katie or Kevin, and Kevin and Katie would come back? So I'm more concerned about the social skills. I can teach the hard skills. I can teach the skills about the business. I need somebody that's got the people skills to get along with my coworkers, to get along with me, and get along with customers. And that's the most important thing. Soft skills, even Harvard University said soft skills are the #1 factor in getting a job. And they really are, these social skills. So as far as pre-employment, I'd highly recommend volunteering. It also gives your young adults confidence. So when they get on the job, they'll kind of know what to do with the customer, because most companies that hire them are not going to train them in these social skills. They'll train them how to use the cash register or whatever they'll be doing, but they're not going to take any time, like I did with my business, to train them in these types of skills, unfortunately.
Before we get into the resources, I just wanted to add something to what Kurt said, which is that different types of volunteer opportunities can help young adults to really understand the kinds of environments in which they're the most comfortable. And that's just sort of invaluable when it comes to job hunting, to already know that there are certain environments that are good environments for you, certain environments that you really want to steer clear from, that can really help unlock some of the mystery around getting and keeping a job, right? Those are two totally different things: getting a job and then being able to succeed in that job and to continue with that job. So I just wanted to add that.
That's a great point, Beth. And the firm handshake too is so important for that first impression. Practicing that handshake with your young adults is critical. So they don't, I don't know if have you ever had somebody where you shake their hand and it's just loosey goosey, and that doesn't create a great first impression.
Katie, do you want to talk about some of these resources? Do you want me to?
Sure. Yeah, no, I can share some of these resources. In addition to your local resources, like I mentioned earlier, your club advisors, your librarians, your transition coordinators, the guidance counselors, you can also use the World Wide Web as your starting point. Do something.org, volunteermatch.org. I'm in New York, like I said, so Volunteer New York is a wonderful website. And then also like the social media that you have, the Facebook groups, you could just do a search within that Facebook group for volunteer, and there's lots of opportunities that pop up there. And I also wanted to mention that when your young adult is looking for a volunteer opportunity, there could be something that's like a one-time volunteer opportunity, or they could just like get their feet wet in volunteering by trying something once, or it's something that could grow into this is a 3-month opportunity, or this is a 6-month opportunity. And using these you can use the search filters on some of these websites to find out if these opportunities are once in a while, or if it's something that has like an every week commitment. And I also just wanted to mention that there are also volunteer opportunities that you can just tap into whenever you have the time. For example, I'm working with a student right now, and they wanted to get involved in volunteering, but they were very, very nervous. They presented with all of these like nervousness. I don't want to use the word anxiety, but it was like, I'm so worried about what am I going to look like and what am I going to do? But I really want to volunteer, and I want to put something on my college application, and I want to put something on my resume. And so we used one of these sites, and we did a filter, and we found a great volunteer opportunity to write letters to the servicemen. And it's something that this client can do whenever they have a free moment, and it's on their time, and then they mail the letter, and it makes them feel good because they are giving back in a way that feels right for them right now. And as they do this a little bit more, then hopefully it's like to take the next step into doing a different type of volunteer opportunity. For those of you who are on the call who are also perhaps involved in the school, or you are a practitioner yourself, we've listed 2 types of resources that you can access. One is out of a community college of Vermont. There's a screenshot of this inventory worksheet that just is a way for a student, like another starting off point where the student can list their skills, something that they enjoy doing, maybe a skill they'd like to learn a little bit more, just a way to gather more information for that student. It's very concrete. It's right there on paper, and they can say, you know what, I'd like to look into a volunteering opportunity that's with like designing. Let's look into that using one of these search filters. And then the other resource that we have listed here is a series of books that are a great resource if you're in the school setting, or if you just wanted to have some, fill in the blank worksheets or generate some conversation topics around transition. So there's one for employment, there's one for independent living, and then there's one for post-secondary opportunities. So that's listed there as well. Beth and Kurt, any other additional resources that you wanted to mention that we don't have listed here?
I just wanted to add that I'm starting to see in my local area, political campaigns starting up. And so, those types of volunteer opportunities are, political campaigns are always looking for volunteers, and it can be like what Katie mentioned, which, something sort of behind the scenes, writing postcards, encouraging people to vote, or going door to door. But there are lots and lots of opportunities, to find a candidate that you believe in, and just to do some work and hone some skills that way as well. And that's also a really great, can be a really great family volunteer opportunity.
The other one I was going to mention, when I had my days off, when I had a retail store, I would go walk the dogs at the Humane Society. And that's a great activity for a young adult to do. It also gets you, it kind of forces you to socialize because there's usually somebody else back there and you see them, and then people come in and you're talking to them, they're looking for an animal. So I think that's a really good volunteer event. It also helps decrease your anxiety because you're exercising, you're walking these dogs, and there's nothing that feels better than making a new friend like that. And you're also helping those dogs get adopted because you're calming them down a little bit. And, you know, they can practice their social skills because people used to come in all the time and they'd be ready to leave. And I'd say, Tuesday, did you want to know anything about Jack or whatever the dog was? And they turn around and they'd say, oh my gosh, do you know anything about him? And 70% of the time, that dog would get adopted where those people were about to leave because you're able to engage with them and tell them a little bit about that dog, how he walked, and maybe let them walk them. So it's a great way for your young adult also to get maybe some sales experience too.
So we've added our links to our websites here. Again, my business is called Spectrum Transition Coaching, so that's my website. And this is just a way for you to get a little bit more information about what we do. Katie and I are both coaches, so we both work with young adults to help them find these kinds of volunteer opportunities, or figure out what their post-high school plans might be. And Kurt's book is listed there as well. So, we encourage you. I know there's going to be time for questions, and I think we're almost there. But we also encourage you to, take a look at our sites. We've all got lots of resources and things on there. And if you have any questions for any of us individually, we encourage you to reach out after the webinar and just connect.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And certainly we'll make sure that we share contact information with everyone here and who registered too, so that you all have access to reach out to Katie, Beth, and Kurt after this. So I just wanted to say a big thank you. That was super, also very affirming of like why we do community service and volunteering at Beyond Akeela. A lot of what you guys were saying really resonated with what we see our teens getting out of that experience at Beyond Akeela, in terms of just professional interactions and a lot of previewing of them before they get into those experiences too, and just also like getting a sense for like what type of job you like doing. I think that was something you mentioned earlier too, Beth. Like sometimes our perception of what something is going to be is very different than the reality of that too, especially if it comes to like your education background. Then you want to transfer that into the real world of work. It's very different sometimes. So, but thank you all for that. And certainly if people have questions, you can feel free to get those into the chat. I had one that I sort of was thinking about as you guys were talking, and I was curious if there's like sort of like and this could be for anyone really, a minimum sort of like level of time commitment you think for making like a volunteer opportunity meaningful. And it could be that's 30 minutes, but I'm just sort of curious if you guys had any thoughts on like, hey, we've seen best results if it's been X number of weeks or something along those lines.
I maybe I could start with this. I think that just the example that I shared about the young adult that I'm working with, it was very, first of all, it was very meaningful for this young adult that they came and said, Katie, I want you to help me find a volunteer position. And then going through the process of looking through local opportunities for them, then going to these online sites and using the filter, and then finding something that fit with what was going to feel right for them. That in itself was meaningful. That whole act of working together for that bit, that was meaningful for them. And then for somebody else, they might say, I want to, volunteer at the town book fair because I'm really into books and I'm going to be able to give people references to other books that they want. And that's more meaningful for them. It's all really about the young adult and what they're looking for out of this opportunity.
I totally agree, Katie. I think, you know, the young adults that I see come to me with different types of goals in mind. For a young adult who's looking to build skills, let's say social skills, or they've had some maybe not so positive feedback about the way they interact with superiors, you know, whether that's teachers or, you know, people in authority, you know, then a longer term volunteer experience may be a better fit for them, because you can talk about things in real time, and you can say, okay, you know, you had this experience, let's talk about it. What would you do differently next time? And then there's the opportunity to do that, to do those things differently. But then you may also have someone who's just really needing to dip their toe very lightly into all of this, and that a one-time experience can really be very beneficial. And then, you know, you have other families who are looking to increase the amount of time that they spend together and to give back to the community. And then, you know, family opportunities would really be the best thing. So it's so individual. I mean, I've seen clients who can blossom and learn about themselves just from one afternoon of raking leaves in, you know, a park. And then others who start out by volunteering at, let's say, we have a lot of animal shelters in my area, at some, you know, adoption fair, you know, where they need kind of all hands on deck. And that can turn into then volunteering every Saturday, because they really love it so much. So I think it's just very variable.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with what Beth and Katie said. And I think the one time, just trying it for even an hour at our Rotary clubs, you know, we'll do fall cleanups, spring cleanups. We'll have tables at different events in the downtown. And it's always nice to have somebody there for an hour or an hour and a half to relieve one of our Rotary members. So, you know, maybe if they just want to try something for an hour or an hour and a half, just if it's something they're interested in, sign up for that shift, see if they like it. They don't have to commit until, like Beth was talking about, until they know they enjoy it. So I would say, to answer your question, Kevin, even 45 minutes to an hour, they'll get a lot out of it. And I think they'll get some confidence and realize that, boy, this isn't as scary as I thought it was.
I actually had another question that just sort of came to mind too, is, you know, obviously in all these different, and you guys were sort of alluding to this as like a resume building opportunity. And I think, you know, I've seen that for Beyond Akeela teens too, where they take their experience volunteering at camp and they email us after saying, hey, I got this job doing, you know, one person had worked at a farm or was volunteering at a farm at Beyond Akeela, and then ended up working with animals in some capacity after, and sort of utilized her experience on her resume, or leveraged her Beyond Akeela community service on her resume, and then that helped her get the job. I'm wondering if you guys have any tips for families, like how to talk with their teens or coach their teens on using, hey, you got this experience in the volunteer world. How do you get that on a resume so that it looks great for the jobs that you're eventually trying to get?
Well, I'm just going to flag, you know, sorry, my virtual background, but the parent guide for Kurt's book, I want to tell you, I told Kurt when we first signed on that I was using his book with one of my other students tomorrow, my client tomorrow, but Kurt has a really nice, clear, concise way of how to create a resume and using some of the experiences that you have. He lists it out in here, and it's very accessible and user-friendly. And I think that's important for teens. It's important for college-age students. They don't need a manual for how to write a resume. They just need something short and sweet. And this is something that's here. So just to flag that, it's a great resource.
Thank you, Katie. I forgot I even had that in there. So thank you.
Right.
I would say also that one of the things that I encounter with my clients is, and I'm talking about job seekers here, one of the very first questions I ask them is, who can you use as a reference on a job application? And a lot of times they just have not kept in touch with supervisors from other experiences, and they feel very uncomfortable reaching back out after a period of time. And so I would say, always make sure, especially for a volunteer experience where you've been able to build up a relationship with the volunteer coordinator or someone that you've worked with who's on staff at the organization, is to, when you separate from that volunteer experience, to ask, to say, would it be okay? May I have your contact information? Would it be okay if I used you in the future as a reference on, job applications or something like that? And then the trick there is to periodically reach out to those people to let them know how you're doing. So that if it's 3 years down the line and you're looking to use them as a reference, they have some information on how things have been going for you. So that's something a lot of times that I find that the young adults that I work with don't remember to do automatically to get that information.
And sometimes, oh, go ahead, Kevin.
I was gonna say, it's a really great point. I mean, I'm thinking about that as just an employer too. We hire a lot of people, obviously, to work at our camp and meet a lot of people, and it's interesting to sort of, you get a pretty good sense of like who's done that work ahead of time and like how quickly the references come back and who were sort of like consistently, hey, do you have those references? And that's as an employer, that's something we sort of take into account too, is how quickly are people willing to vouch for this person. Keeping those relationships and using them from a volunteer settings is a great tip.
And I was going to say also, when you're volunteering for a nonprofit, they might know of somebody. If you do a good job, if your young adult does a great job, they may have an opening, or they may know another nonprofit that has an opening. And you know what? One thing I think people forget, and I just remembered I got my first job this way as I think about it. When you're volunteering, you're exposed to so many people. And you have no idea who is out there that might be looking for a good worker. And if your young adult does a great job and has good people skills, they don't have to be perfect. As long as you're respectful, people understand nobody knows everything. But if you're pleasant and friendly, people notice that. There's a lot of employers that are having problems finding those types of workers. And you just never know who's going to pull you aside and say, you know what, are you looking for a job by any chance, or what are you doing? That happens all the time, but it won't happen if they don't get out there and volunteer and do a good job and just meet different people.
Awesome. Any other questions out there? Got all the answers. Been covered. Awesome. Well, like I said, I will sort of include contact information. So if you do think of questions, that always happens to me 5 minutes after I hang up from something, and want to reach out, you can certainly feel free to reach out to any of us here, and especially Katie, Kurt, and Beth. So, but thank you to the three of you again for being here and sharing your time and expertise with us. And for those Beyond Akeela families who are on here too, thank you for joining us and spending time with us this evening. Katie, Kurt, Beth, anything last words you guys want to share before we hop off?
Just thank you so much for your time. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And remember, volunteering makes people really happy also. I forgot to say that. So it really is a great way for adults and teens to just get some happiness in their lives, and it's fun. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. All right.